What's up, everybody? Got a wild one this afternoon. As I was listening to closing arguments, getting ready to talk about some of those closing arguments today, we hear news that a verdict is coming. A verdict is coming at 2:45 Eastern Time, 12:45 Mountain Time. Is that what they're on? 12:45 Idaho time, we'll say. So we will watch that together as we did Letitia Stalk. There are multiple conspiracy charges, multiple murder charges, and multiple theft charges that we will go through together as the verdict comes down. We will talk about what she's looking at. A lot of them she's looking at life for, depending on what the verdict is. I'm trying to think. So, John, I think this is a good poll. Do you think the verdict will be a split verdict, meaning some guilties and some not guilties, or unanimous one way or the other? And I know that's kind of confusing. That's probably not good verbiage. Let me think of a better way to say that. So I'll just say, will all of the verdicts for all the counts be the same or different? Will the verdicts for all counts be, and then the two options, the same or different? Because that's what I'm wondering. Do you think it's going to be guilty on all counts or not guilty on all counts? Do you think we're going to have some guilty, some not guilty? Because that's really interesting to me. If this jury will really parse through it, or if they'll just think she's a horrible mom, a horrible person. She definitely had something to do with this. There's no way that this happens without Lori's involvement. And I think that's fair if people think that, or if they think she was just duped by Chad throughout the entirety of this case. And therefore she is not guilty of any of this stuff. She was duped by Chad. So that's what I'd like up as a poll if we can get that. I do. And not just because I feel like I was vindicated is not the right word, but my thoughts feel confirmed. I do want to talk a little bit about the closings, especially the defense closing. Throughout this trial, we saw breadcrumbs of Lori Vallow's attorneys pointing the finger at Chad. We talked throughout the litigation of this case. Will they point the finger at each other? They wanted to split this trial, especially Chad Daybell. They have now decided to split the trial. And all of that led to the culmination of the defense not calling any witnesses or presenting any evidence, and then using the entire closing to basically point the finger at Chad. So while I don't think it was the most artful closing, listening to it on 2x speed made it seem close to normal speed. We'll listen to it a little bit slower than that, but I do want to listen to some parts of it. To me, it was, yes, I am American Lady going to stream the verdict live. I really wanted to listen to parts of the closing. Doesn't seem like we're going to be able to do that. But let me just tell you some of the quotes from closing. And if we have time later, then maybe we can do that as well. But for now, let's go ahead and put this on the screen. We'll play it and turn off the sound for now. You guys can let me know if, in fact, the verdict pops up and I miss it. So here we go. All right. So let's talk about closing a little bit. Yes, Sue, I saw this. Lori was crying after her attorney was done because I heard that she was angry that they pointed the finger at Chad and said certain things about Chad. Let's talk about some of those things. Defense closing. She was a hard worker. She loved her kids. She was a great mom. She was married 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, including Chad, had 5 kids, not including Chad's kids. But the story changes dramatically when Chad Daybell enters the picture. He talks about how he writes these crappy books this crazy religious language about the end times. He's got these weird sayings and views, and this person's married to Jesus and he's Methuselah and she's this person in the story. They've been married before. They have a special bond. Lori's had to sit here and get the evil eye from all these witnesses. And here was something that I thought was kind of interesting. So that was including Vallow's kids. Including Charles Vallow's kids. People that are asking about 5 kids. Yeah, 5 kids, including, so it was Colby Ryan, JJ Tiley, and then Charles Vallow's 2 kids, I think is what he meant. So when we talk about money, power, and sex, which he said is what this case is about, let's look at it. And wow, Chad Daybell, I mean, just got a kick to the rocks in this closing argument, because he's like, you got Charles Vallow, and I really wanted to play this for you, so I hope we have time afterwards. You got Charles Vallow, who was making $400,000 to $500,000 a year, and she leaves him or even kills him without getting anything besides Social Security, which is not going to give you 400 or 500, a kick to the storm, Adam said. Now that's good, Adam. That's good. Dang it. The chat's moving so fast. I missed it, Adam. I wanted to put it up. But from $400,000 to $500,000 a year, she leaves him and apparently ends his life, and then goes to Chad, who's struggling to make $10,000 or $20,000 a year. He's gone bankrupt. Nobody wants to buy his book on the end times. He almost qualifies for Medicaid. I mean, he is literally trying to trash Chad Daybell. And then he says, is this about sex? Take a look at Chad Daybell and then go back and look at the pictures of Charles Vallow, and you tell me if you think this was about physical attraction. I was like, whoa. Like, that's brutal. So I can understand why Lori was upset. I mean, they're literally talking about her husband. And they're like, this guy, she had a rich, good-looking husband, and she went to this ugly loser who was bankrupt. Basically, that's the story they're trying to tell. That there was no money or physical attraction here. Instead, Chad Daybell played on Lori Vallow's vulnerabilities in a time where she was vulnerable. He said, we've had other lives where we're together, and I'm a patriarch. I am here to find the 144,000, and you're going to help me. And that made her feel special. And so he preyed on that vulnerability, and she trusted him. Then he gets into the story of when the cops show up to Chad Daybell's house. What does Chad Daybell do? He immediately calls his lawyer. It's really something when one lawyer condemns somebody else for calling their lawyer, especially a defense lawyer. Number 2, he says he was looking over his shoulder. And why was he looking over his shoulder? Because he knew that, literally, he said words like, Alex and Chad stuffed the kids in the backyard. Literally, though, that's the verbiage and language he was using. Then he sped away and was caught. But if you listen to some jail phone calls and other things that Lori said, it's very clear that she did not know where the kids were. She didn't know what they did with them. She didn't know where they were. She didn't know how it happened or what was happening. There's no text messages. Out of thousands of text messages, there's no calls about where or what they're going to do to the kids or do something bad to the kids. All right, an update on the poll. 70% think it's going to be the same verdict across the board. 30% think it's going to be different verdicts. So the most of you think that. I thought that was an okay argument, that it seemed like Chad knew what happened to the kids, but Lori didn't. Except for the fact that I think most people in this chat and most people on the jury would condemn her for not having any clue where your kids are, for being at poolside in Hawaii while you just don't know where your kids are and you're just going to trust your new husband that everything's fine. And I think that there were plenty of quotes and things she said in the text messages and in the calls that make her seem absolutely cold-hearted, the way that she lied and explained they're fine, they're safe. What do you think, I'm going to let something happen to them? Because of the context of all the other texts that removing these spirits or taking the demons out of their body or zombies or whatever it was is actually what's best for them. So you have to read everything in context. And while you can make it sound okay as a defense lawyer in a closing argument, with all of the other lies stacked on top and all of her other actions, just not buying it. Just not buying it. Now, he's doing the best he can with what he has. Then when he starts talking about Tammy's death, there's more shots at Chad. Tammy was stuck with Chad after his bankruptcy and him trying to sell his stupid books, that she had to go back to work after having 5 kids at home. And then he finished by saying, and he cried while he was basically describing the Jesus Lori knew and told her kids about before she met Chad Daybell. So basically the entirety of this closing was pointing the finger at Chad Daybell, making him the bad guy, making him the one they should pin all this on, and not Lori Vallow. All right. So I've got it up here. People are saying Boyce is live. If you have a different link you want to send. But right now I'm on the East Idaho News link, which I think is going to be one of the more reliable ones. It says court is live. They have a verdict. Yes, we're waiting on the verdict here. John, if you could double check and make sure it's not anywhere else, like if you just search in YouTube for the Vallow verdict, it might come up on another channel. Kathy said, why does this feel so personal? I think it's because almost everybody has a mother, a daughter, a son, a husband, a stepdad, divorce in their family. Almost everybody has some aspect of this. To think that someone could do this to their children or let it be done or conspire for it to be done is just so deplorable. And we like protecting people that can't protect themselves. And she was supposed to be protecting her kids and didn't. So are you guys saying law and crime? Law and crime is where I should go. Let's check that one out. And then I will answer another question. Yeah, law and crime doesn't have it up either. We're going to stick with East Idaho News for now. All right. Sarah, welcome. And Oliver and Jill. I saw that Tori and let me see here, Liz B. Bunch of people gifting memberships. This group of people in this chat are wildly generous. Jocko, Charlie McCoy, and Moon Girl. Tons of new members. It's always fun. New people on the squad. The Opinionated Idiot. Congrats on 230K subs, Peter. You give amazing commentary and insight to all of the cases you cover. Well, thank you so much. Alley Cat, will you please cover the Jacqueline Trazel West case? Been wondering your take on it. So here's what I'll say, Allie. Anybody else interested in this? Let me know in the comments. DM me about it, because that's how we usually get the steam rolling on a case that everybody cares about. The more people that are interested in it that are part of this community, the more likely we're going to dive in together and check a case out. Bev, finally, it's a good day for justice. Every day is a good day for justice, Bev. And no, she wasn't duped. The irony of the verdict in this trial is coming down as we head into Mother's Day weekend. I feel like that's happened multiple times where it's corresponded with a date that just seems too good to be true. Bella Brat. So glad you are doing this live, Peter. Thank you. Yes, you guys asked. It ended up working out perfectly. Eventually, as the day went on, I told John, listen, I got to set it at 2:30. That's when I have time. And it just so worked out that 2:45 my time is when the verdict's going to come down. Alley Cat, no problem. No problemo. Diana Rose, Arizona family law paralegal here. Opposing counsel on one of our cases was representing Charles Vallow in their divorce. We are live streaming you and them, maybe them, in our office. That's wild. Hello to Diana Rose and the legal team there in Arizona. Should get your contact information in case I ever need to refer you guys somebody over there. Maureen, announced verdict is in 3 minutes. This judge runs on time. Well, that would be a minute ago. So you guys let me know if so they are late. People are saying Judge Stephen W. Boyce on YouTube. I heard that was going to be the spot to look, but let me see. Judge Stephen W. Boyce. All right. So they are showing the same thing as East Idaho News right now. It's crazy. It's split up into all these different places, but we'll catch it. We'll catch it. No doubt. No doubt there. Summer, how does it work for your defense to close with something you don't agree with? I thought Lori would have known what he was going to say. Nate said Lori was very upset. So this is a great question, actually, Summer. So there are certain things that your client is the boss on, okay? And then there are other things where they would be defined as strategic or legal decisions, which the lawyer has the final say. Now, you can, like we said and we talked about before, talk with your client, agree on certain things, say, I'm going to do this, I'm not going to do that. And at the end of the day, you can even get your client to sign something saying we wanted to point the finger at Chad Daybell. She said no, sign off. So it's not ineffective assistance of counsel. It's not malpractice. It's not your fault. She made this decision knowingly and willingly. Okay. But at other times when, listen, this case is over, you're doing the best for your client. You're going to take your shot. She can't see the truth through all the clouds that she's been, brainwashed or whatever he thinks. And so he shot his shot. Now, whether we agree with that or not, I don't know. But I mean, I think it was the only move they had. I think it was really the only argument they had. Nicole, can she still get death in Arizona? Thanks, Peter. I don't know the answer to that. I haven't looked into the Arizona case at all. I don't know if they have the death penalty there or if they're seeking it in this case. Samantha Marlman, if she gets conspiracy, how much time will she get? Life. Conspiracy to commit murder can still get you life in Idaho. So I think if she's convicted on a slew of these, whether it's a number of years or life, I think she's going to prison for life. I can confirm that though. Let's see. Well, this is just conspiracy. So yeah, so it's up to life. I think she ends up with life if she gets the conspiracy charge. If she's convicted on the conspiracy charge, this is my guess. But if it's just conspiracy, maybe sentencing will actually be a big deal, and we'll have to see, what's going to happen with sentencing. Sue's Esquire, every day is a good day for justice. So they're waiting for Lori, Wynette said. Lisa Girl, sat here with you around this time last year, waiting nervously for the JD and AH verdict. We listened to a lot of verdicts together, right? A lot of verdicts together. Is there something in my hair or is that the light? It's just gray hair. I see just something sparkling there. It's more and more gray every day. Embrace the gray. Kat Langton, bunch of new members again. Liz Bear, the gifts are swinging like it's Christmas. Crystal Richards, Criminal Med Connections, PBP, 4020. Will they sentence her today, Kim? I don't know. I haven't heard that they're going to. I would expect them not to. Now, if she gets multiple murder convictions, it's going to be life anyways, but I do think they're going to want to present evidence about maybe how she was a good mom or some mitigating evidence. I definitely think, okay, let me back up. Thinking back on what's been filed in this case, I would say they're not going to sentence her today because the defense wants to bring up the mental health concerns and competency issues and that type of stuff in the sentencing phase. So I think we'll have to wait for the sentencing phase because those are things that did not come out in trial. Again, it seems like because Lori Vallow did not want them to come in. To me, it seems like the defense wanted to present a diminished capacity type of a defense. She couldn't form the culpable mental state, and she was vulnerable, and she was brainwashed and pushed basically by Chad Daybell. That's what I think the defense, if they had their way, I think that's what they would have presented in this case. It's just one guy's guess. Mary Claire, live streaming the lawyer you know and Law and Crime. You are my favorite. Thank you. While working, as someone who had a family member murdered on Mother's Day and no justice has been served, I truly appreciate when justice is swift. Wow. I'm sorry to hear that, Mary Claire. It's definitely not a perfect system. That's for sure. Tori, how long can you sit and wait with us for a verdict, Peter? So this is a good question. And actually, I think my 2 appointments this afternoon, and when I call them appointments, it's 2 things scheduled that I have to do just myself. Some end of the week wrap up stuff with reports and stuff in our system where I kind of go through all of our cases and stuff. So really I can do that later. So we will see. We will see how long we can ride for. Big Dog Ron in Arizona. Love it when you and your dad are on together. Learn so much. FYI, Lori is toast. I love it too, Ron. Gray equals more wisdom, Kristen said. So when I first started out as a lawyer, I had short hair, clean shaven, literally looked like I was 18. Half people didn't even think I was a lawyer. So I used to just wish I had gray hair and gray in my beard and all this stuff. Now I have quite a bit, as you can see. And my sisters and wife and everybody reminds me of that as much as they see me. But with the long hair and the beard, I didn't think I needed as much. And now, of course, here it comes in. But I'm good with it. I like it. Becky McKee and Marketa Simkovich, welcome to the crew. And Mimi L. Michelle says she's not brainwashed. She's a sociopath. Wouldn't be the first, unfortunately. Matt D. Could Lori Vallow be called as a witness for the prosecution in Chad Daybell's trial? Yes, she could be called, but she would still have her Fifth Amendment right because the appellate process is still going on. Now, if she's found not guilty of all of this, that would be interesting if she would be called in the Chad Daybell trial. But a lot of those questions, we're going to have to wait for a verdict to see how it's going to play out. Leslie Ann. Gigi from Pretty Lies and Alibis is there, and she tweeted that there are 3 rows of law enforcement in the courtroom. The doors have been closed, and they're waiting for Lori and the judge. I mean, very clear, and I usually am on the same page as this chat, but to me, this seems like it's pointing towards a guilty verdict. I don't know if it's going to be guilty across the board, but guilty where it matters. All right, here we go, folks. We will get to the rest of the questions for sure. That's Archibald and Thomas, just for people that aren't familiar with the characters here, because we haven't seen a lot of this. The bottom screen, at least on mine, Thomas is the one on the left with kind of blonde hair. Archibald has the black hair and the goatee. Lori Vallow is the one in the middle. Top right is going to be the judge, who's not there yet. Top left is the prosecutor's table. The bald guy is Wood, who's the lead prosecutor on the case. Thank you, Ruth. Somebody said put it on 2x speed to make sure we're live. I will do that. It is on 2x speed. I like that trick. That was a good trick. And we will get it. If we're a couple seconds behind, I'll do my best to keep it as up to date as possible. But we will watch this together, react to it, answer questions. The most nerve-wracking part, whether you think you're going to win, whether you think you're going to lose, lawyers sit there as nervous as they've been throughout the whole trial. Clients sit there, stomachs turning, if they understand the process and what's going on and, you know, the weight of it. But I mean, this is the most brutal part, even for prosecutors. They're supposed to win. They usually win. It is still nerve-wracking. So now we're just waiting for Judge Boyce. Katie from one of my favorite golf destinations. Sue said, according to Idaho law, it normally takes 2 to 3
All
months.
rise. District Court's now in session. Honorable Stephen Boyce, Judge presiding.
For sentencing, pre-sentence report. So it's not going to happen today. But here we go.
Thank you. Please be seated. All right, good afternoon, everyone. We are going on the record. Court reporter, are you ready?
Yes.
All right, thank you. This is case CR 22-21-1624, State of Idaho versus Noreen Vallow. The matter before the court today is for a verdict in the jury trial that's been conducted over the last several weeks in this case. The court will note on the record, prosecution is here represented by Mr. Wood, Ms. Blake, and Ms. Smith. The defense, Mr. Archibald, Mr. Thomas are present, as well as the defendant who is present. The court's been advised that the jury has reached a verdict at this time. Is the state ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is the defense ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very well. Let's have the jurors brought in, please.
All right, here comes the jury. Everybody's ready to proceed. No issues they need to handle.
While the jurors are being brought in, I'd like to indicate that this matter is being live streamed on the court's YouTube channel. In addition, the court's existing conduct order is in effect, and everyone needs to comply with that conduct order. This verdict has several counts. The court is going to require that all in attendance abstain from any sort of loud outbursts or sounds that could in any way affect the proceedings in this matter, as the counts are read in the verdict. And I expect to maintain order and decorum, as has been the case throughout this trial, with those in attendance. So please keep that in mind once we get to this stage of these proceedings. So with that in mind, if the jurors are ready, they can be seated.
All right, please.
So, Jamie, the judge doesn't know the verdict right now, but the jury gives them the verdict form so they can look through, make sure it was filled out appropriately. So the judge does know the verdict before it is read and before anybody else in the courtroom knows, but he doesn't know it as he sits here right now. But he will be handed a piece of paper, so he will know the verdict ahead of time.
Jury's all present, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bailiff. Please be seated. All right, the court will note that we had alternate jurors that were excused upon deliberations. So now the remaining 12 jurors who have deliberated are here and appear to all be properly seated. Will counsel stipulate that the jury is all present and properly seated in the state?
Yes, Your Honor.
Will the defense will stipulate?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, at this time, the court will inquire then from the jury. Has the jury reached a verdict?
Yeah.
Very well. If you have the verdict form, I'd ask the bailiff bring that over here and we'll have it brought to the clerk to be read.
Here we go. The poll is up to 72% of people think that it's going to be the same across the board. Guilty, not guilty, whatever it may be. And 28% think it's going to be some kind of a mixed verdict.
court has reviewed the verdict form, find that it's been properly completed, signed and dated. So at this time, I'll direct the clerk to please read the verdict into the record.
So he knows it right now. The judge knows the verdict.
The defendant would please rise.
Here we go.
In the District Court of the 7th Judicial District of the State of Idaho, in and for the County of Fremont, State of Idaho plaintiff versus Lori Noreen Vallow, aka Lori Noreen Daybell, defendant, case number CR 22211624. Verdict. We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn to try the above entitled action for our verdict, unanimously answer the questions submitted to us as follows. Question number 1. In regards to count 1 of the amended indictment, is Lori Noreen Vallow not guilty or guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Tylee Ryan and grand theft by deception? Answer, guilty. Question number 2. In regards to count 2 of the amended indictment,
No surprise
is
there.
Lori Noreen Vallow not guilty or guilty of first-degree murder of Tylee Ryan? Answer, guilty.
Wow.
Question number 3. In regards to count 3 of the amended indictment, is Lori Noreen Vallow not guilty or guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Joshua Jackson Vallow and grand theft by deception? Answer, guilty.
So not just conspiracy, but also the actual murder charges.
Question number 4. In regards to count 4, the amended indictment, is Lori Noreen Vallow not guilty or guilty of first-degree murder of Joshua Jackson Vallow? Answer, guilty. Question number 5. In regards to count 5 of the amended indictment, is Lori Noreen Vallow not guilty or guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Tammy Daybell? Answer, guilty. Question number 6. In regards to count 7 of the amended indictment, is Lori Noreen Vallow not guilty or guilty of grand theft? Answer, guilty. Dated this 12th day of May, 2023, signed by the presiding officer.
All right, please be seated.
Take note, Chad
Madam Clerk,
Daybell.
thank you for reading the verdict into the record. At this time, let me just inquire of the jury, is this in fact a true and correct verdict?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Let me ask now from counsel, does the state wish to have the jury polled?
We do not, Your Honor.
Does the defense wish to have the jury polled?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, the jury will be polled at this time. Madam Clerk,
Guilty
if
on
you
all
please
counts, in case you're just
indicate
getting here.
only by juror
Murder,
numbers,
conspiracy to
each of
commit
the
murder on
jurors if this is
JJ,
their true and correct verdict.
Tylee, and Tammy.
Juror number 4, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 5, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 6, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 8, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 9, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 10, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 11, is this your true and correct verdict? Yes. Juror number 12, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 13, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 14, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 15, is this your true and correct verdict? Yes. Juror number 16, is this your true and correct verdict? Yes.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. The court does find it's a unanimous verdict in this case, so I will direct the clerk to record the verdict into the record of this case. I'll now have a closing jury instruction for our jurors and also those alternate jurors that are in attendance today. You have now completed your duties as jurors in this case and are discharged with the sincere thanks of this court. The question may arise as to whether you may discuss this case with the attorneys or with anyone else. For your guidance, the court instructs you that whether you talk to the attorneys or to anyone else is entirely your own decision. It is proper for you if you want to, but you are not required to do so, and you may choose not to discuss the case with anyone at all. If you choose to talk to someone about the case, you may tell them as much or little as you like about your deliberations or the facts that influenced your decision. If you decide to discuss the case with anyone, you should be careful to respect the privacy and feelings of your fellow jurors. You should limit your comments to your own perceptions and feelings. If anyone persists in discussing the case over your objections or becomes critical of your service either before or after any discussion has begun, please report that to me. At this time, then, the court offers its sincere thanks to the jurors. I appreciate your patience and attentiveness throughout this lengthy trial. I also thank you again for upholding your important civic duty as jurors in this case. I'd also like to thank the attorneys who tried this case for your professionalism throughout the proceedings and in the pretrial motions that came before trial. At this time, then, the court will discuss briefly sentencing in this case. In Idaho, pursuant to Title 19, Chapter 25, a report is required to be prepared before sentencing called a pre-sentence investigation report. In a typical case, that report takes at least 2 months to prepare. In a case such as this, it will likely take longer. The court will inquire as to a pre-sentence investigator for the time frame required to prepare the report in this case.
Sue, let us know
On
about
getting an
that.
estimation, then the court will reach out to counsel for determining a date for sentencing. I'll just advise everyone that will likely be, I'm thinking, at least 3 months probably before that sentencing can be scheduled to have the report completed. The court will also advise at this time then, upon conclusion of the proceedings, the defendant will be remanded back to custody of the Ada County Sheriff at this time to be transferred to the Fremont County Sheriff for further proceedings in Fremont County for sentencing. The court will also instruct the clerk to collect any of the jurors' notes pursuant to Idaho Criminal Rule 24.1A. At this time, then, the court will ask that the jurors and any alternates in attendance be excused from the courtroom. And I am going to direct that all in attendance here remain seated until such time as the jurors have been completely exited from the courtroom. And in addition, I'll let the jurors know there is additional information you'll be receiving through the court administration offices on your way out as you leave today. So again, thank you for your service. Court will be adjourned. And Mr. Bailiff, if you could have all rise for your jury.
All rise, please.
I've got some thoughts on how we got here after the stream is done on why I think they went guilty across the board and not just on conspiracy or left out Tammy Daybell or any number of things they could have done as a compromise verdict.
All right. Thank you, counsel. Thank you, everyone, for your decorum this afternoon. Court is adjourned.
Judge, when would you like me to open the doors for?
All right. So that's it. We'll leave it up just in case anything else pops on. Let's get through a few questions and then I'll just give my general thoughts on how we kind of got here. Oh, one thing I think I forgot to say in the beginning because we jumped right in. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Almost 10,000 people in the chat, which is awesome to come watch this together. So hit that like button for anybody else that's interested in the verdict and come and join us. Oh, that's it. It's over. We done. So if anybody wants to come join us, they'll know, and subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe button. We're going to be following Chad Daybell's case as well here, and I'm going to answer what I think happens to him from here on out. Lisa, wonder if Lori Vallow will be brought in restrained to a wheelchair like Darrell Brooks. The answer to that was no. Jen B, unrelated, but wanted to share. My son filled out an all about my mom at school and listed Lawyer You Know as my favorite show. He knows his mama. Jen B, I would love to see a picture of that. And tag me on Instagram at Tragos Law. I would love to. That is amazing. That's how you know. That's how you know we got a community here. Snoopykins, watching this from Utrecht, Netherlands. Thank you for always making U.S. law understandable, even for us foreigners. Your system is so different from ours. It is cool to learn about different systems. Diana Rose, just sent you my email for Arizona referrals on Twitter. I will take a look. Ash Sure. Wave to Nate from the Lawyer You Know fam. Yeah, Nate has crushed. He's crushed this process. Ashley, why does the clerk read the verdict? Good question. The reason is the clerk reads it right? It shouldn't come from the judge because it's the jury's verdict, not the judge's verdict. Judge is going to do sentencing. The jury shouldn't read it in case they read something wrong or get nervous or wouldn't want to be the person to do that. So it's part of the clerk's job to make sure it gets done right. Michelle, Peter, what does the data say about attractiveness in terms of convictions versus acquittals? I feel like people couldn't believe she would do something so awful because of her looks. So Michelle, this is a good question, actually. And this is not Peter's answer, but this is what the research shows. The research has shown, depending on the case, attractiveness can either help you or hurt you. Depending on the juror, attractiveness can either help you or hurt you. If it's an attractive female, the studies show you do better with male jurors, worse with female jurors. If you're an attractive male, usually you do better with males and better with females. It's kind of weird, right? So it can come into play. In this case, I actually think it helped the state because of their theme. Sex, money, power, whatever it was. I think it helped their theme that she was the controller and everybody around her, all these men would do what she wanted to do because of her looks. That was part of their theme. Lindsay K. Has a juror ever said no during polling? Yes. Yes. And it is awkward, it is weird. It's never happened in one of my cases, but usually they'll have to go back and redeliberate. If there's some kind of juror misconduct, they will talk about that. There are other things that can happen, but yes, if a juror says no, you do not have a unanimous guilty verdict anymore. So you got to send them back. They keep talking. And then if they come out, sometimes the defense may ask to talk to that juror or have the judge talk to that juror in chambers. Were you coerced? Were you forced? Were you pushed? And to get the answers that way to make sure we have a fair and unanimous verdict. Joe, speculation, I know, but do you think Chad will now enter a guilty plea? So I know there's going to be a few questions here. Here's how I think this affects Chad's case. I think Chad Daybell is going to lose. I think he's going to lose across the board. I think he is easier to point at as the ringleader than Lori Vallow. It was in his backyard. His phone pinged back there. I think he is cooked. But I do not think this is going to push him to enter a guilty plea, especially if the death penalty is on the table. One thing they may do is maybe the defense will offer, hey, if you take the death penalty off the table, he'll plead guilty, go to prison for life. I don't know. But I don't think this is going to push him to plead guilty if all he's looking at is life. And Lori Vallow, in case you're wondering, her sentence is going to be life. Liz B, what happens if a juror says no to the poll? Has this ever happened? Yes. And we got to go back and make sure we get a unanimous verdict. Leah MT, how often when a verdict is read, does a poll juror say it wasn't their verdict? Does the defense just want to see if it was unanimous? Yes. And they want to see if anybody succumbed to pressure back there. Because when you're sitting in a room with 11 other people and everybody's screaming guilty, sometimes it's hard to keep your resolve and say not guilty. But then when you get out in front of the court and you feel like you have the judge and maybe the defense attorney's there on your side, then you feel more comfortable saying, no, that wasn't my verdict. So it has happened before. It is a very, very small percentage. It is the exception, not the rule. CMC, how do you think this will impact Charles' trial verdict? Also celebrating being on 11-month member. I'm a big fan of Justice. CMC 1 month away from our annual celebration for you. When you say Charles, so I don't know if you mean the Charles Vallow murder case in Arizona. I think that, we're going to see some different evidence in that case, but I don't think it's going to look good for Lori Vallow over there. But there is some self-defense arguments and Alex Cox's involvement. So I think that might be a little bit of a different case. I wonder how much they're going to wrap Chad Daybell into it. But if you meant Chad Daybell's trial and verdict, we kind of mentioned that this was a preview for them and it does not go well for them. But I think one thing it may do to change their strategy is maybe they will put on a defense. Maybe they will call witnesses. Maybe they will push a little harder on the offensive as opposed to you can't prove this and you didn't prove that. More on that later. Normie, the audacity of her and Chad chilling by the pool sealed their faith. I think that might be a Freudian slip, fate, and he's got it coming too. Yeah, I think that was incredibly damning. And again, when I give my thoughts, I'll mention that as well. Thank a farmer. Peter, do you recall any specific evidence tying her to Tylee's murder? Not outside of just the hair that was on the duct tape with JJ. Again, I'm going to hold this because I'm going to talk more about how I think we got here, even with maybe less than a mountain of evidence. Summer Golden, Nate will go live soon interviewing people. Very cool. We will have to catch that. Are we going to stick around for the press conferences? Let me know where they are and I'll try to look some up. I've got a little bit more time. Thank you, Sandra. Nicole, justice has been served this month, and what a beautiful process again. Thank you, Peter, for your insight. Love the lawyer you know, fam. Me too. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. And, a little justice for some kids here who did not have the best mother, to say the least. Patty, please help me understand why they didn't go on trial together like they did everything else. It seems like Chad gets a head start this way. A head start off a cliff, maybe. But Chad wanted to delay the process and file the motion to continue. Lori invoked her right to a speedy trial. Therefore, it becomes a part of the process where you're going to violate somebody's rights if you put them on trial together. So in order to protect her speedy trial rights, they had to try hers now. In order to protect his right to a fair trial and a fair defense, his lawyer said he needed more time to sift through discovery. It was only fair to push his trial out. Thank you, Anna Lee. Julielle, Peter, please add I know a guy merch to your store. We'll look into that. Kay Simantel, if Chad takes a plea, he can be required to accept responsibility and give details of the crime, right? No. So he can accept responsibility. He's not required to give details of the crime. Criminal Med Connections, can you change a plea on appeal? Can LS drop DID? You mean like if she comes back around? I mean, theoretically, I guess you could. If she gets a new trial, she can go do it again, but she's already admitted the facts in multiple interviews that she is the one that did this. So I don't think that that's going to happen. Regina, I love waiting for verdicts with you. You're the best. Thanks, Peter. Thank you, Regina. It makes it less nerve-wracking when you do it with a crew, And then we're going to burn through a bunch of new members. Wiley Coyote, I like that name. Nikki Griffith, Harriet Cattle, Barbara, Cheryl, and Jerry. Welcome. Thank you, Gina. Bunch to run through here. Chat is flying. Becky, I was on a civil jury where two people changed their vote when polled because they misunderstood the questions, but it didn't change anything because only 9 votes are required. I've also seen people change their vote because there was some kind of misunderstanding. Then they go back and they end up coming back with the vote with everybody else, but now they understand it and it is unanimous. So yeah, thank you for that insight, Becky. I love getting behind the curtain for people that have sat on juries. Thank you, Joe. It just adds a really great perspective. Tara, what do you think Chad will do now? I think he's still going to trial as long as they're seeking the death penalty. He probably will go to trial even if they're seeking life because, what does he have to lose really? But if they give him any kind of a deal, I think he would take it. I think the best deal they're ever going to give him is life. Kathy, when will sentencing happen? They said at least 2 months because there's a pre-sentencing report. Sue told us and the judge confirmed. The judge thinks it's going to be even longer, so we're still a few months away from sentencing. And we're a full year away from Chad Daybell's trial. Jane, thank you, Peter. Exactly the result I expected and wanted. So I absolutely expected guilty on the conspiracy and the theft charges. The murder charges I thought could have gone either way. And even Tammy Daybell's I thought could have gone either way. Only a couple more questions, and then I'm going to jump into kind of how I think we got here. Katie, are you surprised by the lack of emotion from Lori? Based on how she was talking through the documentary or what was on the documentary with the podcast and the cell phones and the text messages, she thinks people just don't understand. You guys don't understand. And therefore, I think she still thinks that there's some misunderstanding here, that the world just doesn't get her. And I don't think she's that surprised. Darlene, what are the chances that the prosecution declines a plea deal with Chad if the death penalty is removed? Very high. I mean, they'd probably always offer life. You'd always offer the max. And if they want to take it, then they take it. And you don't have to spend time and money trying the case. Janine, amazing job by the jurors. RIP to the victims. Pat, would have loved to hear your mock closing on this one. Your Murdaugh mock close was spot on. Thank you, Pat. I probably would have hit a lot of the same points where I pointed the finger at Chad. That's really all they have. The lack of evidence connecting Lori and pointing the finger at Chad is really all I think they had. Mary, hello from Ireland. Have you played golf here? Not Ireland, just Scotland, but it's on my list. I'm not a big international traveler, but Ireland is on my list for golf. Has some great courses. I live near Mount Juliet, designed by Jack Nicklaus. Chauffeur available. I like it. Amy, why would Chad take a plea? He will get the death penalty, in my opinion. So what would be his benefit? Why would it benefit the court? So that's what I'm saying. In order for him to take a plea, I think they'd have to offer him life or maybe something less than life. And I don't think that's going to happen. So I don't see him taking a plea, even though it's looking bad for him after this verdict. Summer, Nate is live on EIN YouTube channel. Well, let's check it out. So there's a Larry and Kay press conference here. I actually don't want to step on that, so I'll let Nate roll and maybe we'll react to it later. So check out Nate if you guys want to during those interviews. Jacob, justice is the process, not the outcome or the result. I like that. J.R. Cuber, I think we learned a very hard lesson with Casey Anthony case. A mother's despicable behavior and lies and dead children does in fact make one guilty. Oof, that was a tough one. All right, so here we go. How did they get here? Just one man's opinion. I think that the prosecution from the jump simplified this case from opening statements, simplified this case, gave a timeline, and gave a motive. And we've talked about motive in every criminal case we've talked about on YouTube. And we always say, we don't have to prove motive before the prosecution. The defense, when there is no motive, like in Murdoch, they hammer it. Doesn't always work. But when there is lacking evidence connecting Lori Vallow to specifically committing the crime of murder on Tammy Daybell or committing either of the crimes on the kids, even with a hair, either on the duct tape or as her lawyer tried to argue in closing, it could have been on the pajamas or the blanket or whatever. If you have a good motive that makes logical sense, the jury is told not to leave their common sense at the door when they come and listen to this trial, listen to the evidence, listen to the lawyers. When you have a motive and a theory of the case that fits right with the evidence, money, power, sex, remove the obstacles that are stopping us from finding the 144,000 in this wild goose chase that they are just making up to create power. They rape people. They convert people. They lead people. They take money from areas they don't deserve it. They kill people to get them out of their way so they can stay together and do what they want to do. They remove people so that they can collect their money, their benefits. It all lined up. It all made sense. And so once they believe that story, you don't need to have Lori holding a weapon. You don't need to have Lori's phone pinging there. You don't need to have Lori directly involved with Tammy Daybell because it was all part of the same plan with the same motive, pushing towards the same end result that they achieved. But they got caught. And it was so obvious that all the bodies that are under their bus were there because that bus was going in one direction and no one was going to stop it. Not innocent, beautiful little children, not spouses, not anything. That's really what I think won the day for the prosecution, is the way that they explained it and simplified it, and it matched right up with the evidence. Alaskan Cheryl. Oh, good. Chad Daybell has a whole year to sweat it out. Can't think of anyone who deserves it more. Yeah, I mean, he's sitting in the same place right now. He's going to be sitting after the trial, I think, so it doesn't really make a difference. Nahlis, what would be her sentence time? It's going to be multiple life sentences. I don't think Judge Boyce is going to go easy on her. Even if he could, I don't think he can because she was convicted of the murder charges. Katrina, Chad does please. Can he appeal anytime later? So there are different things you can appeal, but usually you waive most of the appellate process with the plea deal. It also depends if he thinks he's going to get a certain sentence, but the judge gives a different sentence. He can then appeal the sentence after a plea deal. So less plea or less appeal opportunities when you do take a plea deal, but not impossible. Mary Phillips, thank you for the super sticker. Marion, welcome to the membership crew. Jenny X still thinks she is technically insane. Review the Arizona tapes of Charles and her lack of proper emotion in court. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know Arizona's insanity definition. I'm very familiar with Colorado's and Idaho's at this point because of the cases we've covered there. But every state's different, and I don't memorize them all. So when that one comes up, I'll take a look into it. All right. I think we are getting close to it. Let's see if there's any specific interviews. No, right now it's just Nate talking away, which is good if you guys want to check that out. Oh, here are some interviews. I don't know who these people are. I don't know if these are, I don't want to step on Nate's interview. So here's what I'll say. Because they're live right now, you want to watch them live, go check Nate out, East Idaho News. Maybe we'll check some of them out later. But at the end of the day, the guilty verdict is justice in this case. There's no doubt in my mind after listening to the evidence, she was involved. Now, was there enough to convince this jury that she actually should be convicted of these murder counts? That was up to them, and I would have respected their decision either way, because I would have respected if they said there just wasn't enough evidence to connect that. But I will respect that they felt like there was. But no matter what, I felt like the conspiracy charges were locked and loaded. No chance she didn't know about it. No chance she didn't encourage it. No chance she didn't try to help cover it up. No chance she wasn't involved with her brother and her husband, her soulmate, right? The two men closest to her were the ones that did this. I'll answer a couple more questions and then I'll get out of here. Samantha, Peter, you're cracking me up. He's sitting in the same place he'll be after trial. Exactly. So, yeah, to me, I mean, I really wanted to listen to that closing argument because Jim Archibald just was not very kind to Chad Daybell. Tom, Peter, her arms were crossed at verdict and departure. Body language always interesting. Off to 250. Peter, thank you. And yes, hit that subscribe button before you guys take off today. Hit that like button before you take off. Thank you, Tom, so much. I really think the lack of emotion between her and Letitia Stalk tells me a couple things. Number one, there probably are some mental health issues, even though they're not legally insane. Number two, I don't think either of them are surprised. And I will just tell you, as a lawyer who sat in the chair next to people that you're pretty confident are going to get convicted, you have those conversations ahead of time. You tell them it's likely that it's going to be a conviction. You tell them to prepare for the worst. You tell them no outbursts. You tell them, that this is a situation that, it's not over. We can still appeal. We still have this argument, that argument, whatever. But you let them know to prepare for the worst. Never in a criminal case ever, even the ones I've won, have I said, oh, this is going to be really great. Get excited because it's a not guilty verdict coming. Never does that happen. Never does that happen. Joe Lyons, always protect your kids. She didn't. That is a great one to go out on before Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers. I had a special lunch with my mom today. We took a picture. Maybe I'll post it later so you guys can see. It was a lot of fun. We went to the Columbia. Just her and I. So that was nice. All right. You guys are the best. Another one in the books. Sentencing coming soon. And Chad Daybell still lingering. I feel like Jim Archibald was just giving him nicknames, weird Chad Daybell, bankrupt Chad Daybell, crappy book writer Chad Daybell, less good looking than Charles Vallow. I mean, it was really brutal. But I appreciate you all. I appreciate all the likes and subscribes and stuff you guys do, the new members. This was a horribly sad case back to back with Letitia Stalk. You guys made it interesting. You made the discussions doable and palatable, and us to be able to get through feeling there was some benefit, learning and understanding each other and seeing how to look at cases like this that are difficult. More to come. Sarah Boone, Courtney Clenny OnlyFans, Brian Koberger. We got lots in the pipeline, but if you guys see cases that interest you, give me a follow on, Instagram and Twitter at Tragos Law. We're trying to get to 20K. We're just crawling there on Instagram right now. So give us a follow. We're going to give away some new merch when we hit there. I love you all. Check out what we do because we're real lawyers here at Tragos Law with the outro. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok at Tragos Law is our handle. And don't forget to listen to the Lawyer You Know podcast featuring new episodes every week. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, the Lawyer You Know.